Over the past 10 years, thousands of movies have hit the world's multiplexes. It's nearly impossible to watch all of them. Yet, looking back over the past decade, it's easy to recall the ones that left indelible marks. The ones that caused audiences to leave the theater mind-blown or even heartbroken. Now the list that you're about to see, it represents those movies, at least for me. So raise a glass and join me at saluting and celebrating the 2010s at the movies.
It came here for a reason. It was mutating our environment. It was destroying everything.
It wasn't destroying. It was changing everything. It was making something new.
Making what?
Have you ever found yourself looking at the night sky, staring at the countless stars sprinkled over the black emptiness of space? As you kept looking at the scale of the universe, you realize how small you are in comparison, filling you with this dreadful emotion that can be hard to describe. There's a thing in our own universe that we cannot see. Terrible things that we are blissfully unaware of. The fear of the unexplainable. The fear of the unknown. Depicted perfectly by Alex Garland's Annihilation. It's about a group of scientists trying to understand a strange phenomenon. They venture beyond an otherworldly border called the Shimmer, into which teams of researchers have been sent before, only not to be heard from again. As a piece of visual storytelling, this film pushes the boundaries of mainstream cinema by offering a film that is so unapologetic in its vision, you can't help but applaud. The way Annihilation portrays fear and delivers its horror will left a big impression in the audience's head. There's an unnerving chill about the horror that lies ahead because we're never really sure what form it will take. It is for sure now to consolidate Garland as one of the major sci-fi visionaries of our time.
As the world fell, each of us in our own way was broken. It was hard to know who was more crazy. Me or everyone else.
What a lovely day!
From its very first scenes, Fury Road vibrates with the energy of a veteran filmmaker working at the top of his game, pushing us forward without the cheap special effects or paper-thin characters that have so often defined the modern summer blockbuster films. The first chase in Fury Road is one of the most remarkable action sequences in film history. And that's really just the warm-up. It's no exaggeration to say that if you think something in this film is the most breathtaking action stunt you've seen in years, you really need just to see a few minutes more to see something better. George Miller has put together some of the greatest, most memorable action set pieces ever. There are dozens of crashes, explosions, and flying bodies in Fury Road, and yet the piece never gets repetitive. This is a challenge to a whole generation of action filmmakers out there, urging them to follow its audacious path into the genre's future and, like George Miller, try their hardest to create something new. Before we're moving on to the next entry, I just want to say, as someone who's not an English native, how proud I am to see foreign movies this decade manages to break through the worldwide mainstream cinema. They give us more of a glimpse into a human experience from all around the world, more than your average Hollywood blockbuster. And that was made clear by one movie who made a big statement in movie awards this year.
And the Oscar goes to
parasite.
이런데 착하다니까. 진짜 니가 착한
Parasite is a tale of two families, one lower class and one upper class. It depicts on how the poor family attempted to infiltrate the rich family. A comedy without clowns, a tragedy without villains. It's a film that's not only one of the best of the decade, but a complete masterpiece of a storytelling. It has the ability to be fun and playful in the beginning, only to turn that around so quickly to reveal the dark and tragic truth hidden underneath. This is a film that has the ability to manipulate you intellectually and emotionally. Bong Joon-ho goes from a dark comedy to absurd comedy to simply dark and then darker. Finally, it touches to a point of hope, and while one could look at it as just hope, it could also be the point where the film reached its darkest, for there is no hope. Before a Warner movie got its fame from Inarritu's Birdman, and this year's 1917, in 2015 there was a German film called Victoria. It is a film that tells a story about a young Spanish woman who recently moved to Berlin and finds her flirtation with a local guy turned deadly as their night out with his friends reveals a dangerous secret. From the director Sebastian Schipper, all 134 minutes of the movie shot in one single continuous shot, roving across 22 of the German capital's locations. It's entirely free of cuts, digitally concealed or otherwise. But more than a technical prodigy, Victoria is an authentic piece of cinematic magic. It uses the Warner cinematography technique not only just as a trademark or a style, but more to explore the story further by giving the audience a chance to experience the story themselves. The film doesn't flaunt on its technical bravado, which makes the audience never too distracted by wondering how Schipper and the cinematographer pulled off their choreography. Schipper and his cast managed to turn a gimmick into a surprisingly subtle portrait of a millennial generation overwhelmed by its own unstoppable momentum. Based on the true story of a 5-year-old Indian boy, Saru, who is adopted by an Australian couple after getting lost hundreds of kilometers from home. 25 years later, Saru finds himself plagued with his memories of his lost family and tries to search for them. Lion is a tale of tragedy and loss, pain and heartbreak, and of how sublime moments of grace in our lives can often come from the aftermath of suffering. This is one of those movies that connects with me in a personal level. It deals with aspects of origin and identity, and that we cannot escape from who we really are. Darth Gavas, the director, has given us the audience a full trust and guide us through the story without the need for unnecessary exposition or easy visual cues. You could watch the entire film without sound, and the images alone would be enough for you to follow. Lion reminds us that sometimes we struggle between the place from which we came and the place we've made our own, and feeling caught between them is painful and confusing until we learn how to either leave one of them behind or learn how to bring them both together. When every comic book movies in the past decade is not only giving us a 2-hour-long movie, but also a 2-hour-long trailer for the next one in the series. There's one comic book movies in the last 10 years that is able to give us what most, or I must say all comic book movies cannot give: an ending. In the sea of superhero movies, Logan manages to find its own voice and stands above its competition. Logan is a movie about consequences. It's a movie about getting old, it's a movie about redemption, and it's a movie about an ending.
You are dying. You want to die. Charles told me.
What else did he tell you?
Do not let you.
It's not about just seeing actions, but it's character and emotionally driven. It's trying to be more than just exciting. This is for the first time we see a horrific reality of life in a superhero genre. The brutal gore and violence in this movie isn't just the style, more than it is to act as a mean of consequences behind the battles that are sensationalized in other superhero movies. Less is more is a simple yet accurate description for Logan as a superhero movie. There is no planetary conflict, there is no world-ending threat, there is just Logan and those he loves.
너 그거 알아? 아프리카 칼라하리 사막에 사는 부시맨. 부시맨들에게는 두 종류의 굶주린 자가 있대. 굶주린 자, 영어로 헝거. 리틀 헝거와 그레이트 헝거. 리틀 헝거는 그냥 배가 고픈 사람이고, 그레이트 헝거는 삶의 의미에 굶주린 사람이래.
Burning is based around an enigma, a vanishing, whose solubility or otherwise becomes progressively less important to the protagonist than his hurt feelings, his wounded love, his damaged soul, and his toxic male envy. Directed by Lee Chang-dong, Burning is a film about a young man who appears on the surface to be keeping it together, but spirals into an emotional meltdown after falling for a girl he cannot have. Now, Burning is something of a slow burn. It takes 2.5 hours long to reach its devastating climax. Most audience will find Burning to be discomforting and haunting. It shows and doesn't tell, which makes the audience pay more attention to little details. A little bit unusual for an artist working in a visual medium, Lee explores the boundaries of what can and cannot be seen. Truth and meanings are virtual impossibilities in Lee's oeuvre, and this entire film is meticulously calibrated in its ambiguity, encouraging certain assumptions that neither the characters nor the audience can ever fully verify.
You clearly love Sacramento.
I do?
You write about Sacramento so affectionately and with such care.
Well, I was just describing it.
Well, it comes across as love.
Sure. I guess I pay attention.
Don't you think maybe they are the same thing? Love and attention.
Greta Gerwig's future debut as a writer-director is a gloriously funny coming-of-age comedy. In tone and structure, after all, this is a teenage comedy. It finds humor in the eternally renewable cycle of senior year. Homecoming and prom, math tests, and school plays. She falls in love for the first time and has sex for the first time. She trades in her loyal longtime best friend for a richer, more popular girl. You might think you've seen this all before, and you probably have. but never quite like this. What Gerwig has done, and it's by no means a small accomplishment, is to infuse one of the most convention-bound in American cinema with freshness and surprise. The characters can look like familiar figures. None of them feels fake. But truly, the film's emotional center is the relationship between a mother and a daughter. In a way, it is about how impossible it is for teenagers to imagine the emotional lives of their parents. The bittersweet feeling of having watched someone grown in front of your eyes into a different and in some ways improved version of herself. Or to put it another way, even though Lady Bird the character will never be perfect, the film is.
C'est vous qui l'avez peint?
Oui. Il y a longtemps.
Quel en est le titre?
Portrait de la jeune fille en feu.
Have you ever found yourself in a hypnotic state, just staring at something so beautiful and watching it change every second, and just experiencing how it makes you feel? No art form has struggled more to get the depiction of love just right, but this film gets it perfectly. In the 18th century France, a young painter, Marianne, is commissioned to paint a wedding portrait of Heloise, who doesn't want to get married and has been refusing to be painted. Disguised as a hired companion, Marianne painted her secretly at night, the portrait which soon becomes a collaborative act of and testament to their love. Every frame looks and feels like a painting, filled with a bunch of amazing cinematography work that hooked our eyes from the very beginning, but after the first 45 minutes, you began to stop observing and started feeling. This film largely creates meaning and mood through its striking images and amazing performances from the two leads, not from the melodramatic plot or extensive use of dialogue. All the dialogue in the film are minimum, but necessary. The story is simple, but hauntingly beautiful. This is a small film made to perfection. In an interview, director Damien Chazelle states something which was to be a backbone theme of the film. If every single thing is enjoyable, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Whiplash is a portrait of a young jazz drummer, Andrew Newman, who possesses this drive to such a degree that everything else in his life is just background noise. Why do we strive for greatness? That is the theme of Whiplash. To push yourself further than you ever imagined possible.
Yes. Then why the fuck didn't you say so?
Whiplash is amazingly deep in its 107 minutes running time. This is something that many of us can relate to, the fear of being average. Damien Chazelle, one of the most exciting filmmakers in this generation, has an aficionado's ear for jazz and an offbeat sense of genre. He and the director of photography, Sharon Mayer, give Whiplash the brooding, spooky look of a horror movie, turning the New York streets and the school hallways into a realm of deep, expressive shadows. Whiplash is a cinematic adrenaline. This film is a deeply personal and vibrantly alive drama. The ending of Whiplash offers one of the most electrifying movie moments in this decade.
Well, we used to look up in the sky and wonder at our place in the stars. Now we just look down and worry about our place in the dirt.
Interstellar reaffirms Nolan as the premier big canvas storyteller of his generation. When the Earth is covered with dust and doesn't seem to be habitable anymore, a team of explorers must explore the vast universe to find the human race a new home. This film is probably one of the most audacious science fiction films ever made. The complexities of space are on screen, but the film's message is about mankind, our planet, and the consequences of actions. Interstellar is a grand gesture in every way, and yet it is Nolan's most humane film to date. Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey both find the souls of Nolan's vision, which is to say, a story of families torn apart by that very vision, and ultimately another story of humans trying to retain what intrinsically makes them human in the parts of space where the species was probably never meant to go. It is a loud and often breathtaking endeavor in every sense.
An idea is like a virus, resilient, highly contagious, and the smallest seed of an idea can grow. It can grow to define or destroy you.
Inception has a very cerebral plot, big on emotion and deeply connected to the exploration of the subconscious. But it is an action film, and a beautiful one. Seeing the movie will blow everyone's mind multiple times. It is dense, it is intense, brainy, and beautiful to look at the same time. Inception proves that you don't need a 3D technology to transmit a totally immersive cinematic experience.
Dreams, they feel real while we're in them, right? It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange.
This film, which most agrees the most intellectually demanding of Nolan's film, demands and rewards our total attention, as well as our emotional engagement. Christopher Nolan is the reigning king of the non-linear plot, and a master of deeply layered narratives. He once again proves that he is wholly capable of bringing his unique voice and vision to the screen in a way that few writer-directors can. But it wasn't until a while ago when I realized someone had taken the throne from him.
Language is the foundation of civilization. It is the glue that holds the people together. It is the first weapon drawn in a conflict.
There is a debate in humankind that never seemed to come to an end, which is whether we are alone in this universe or if we're not. And both are equally terrifying. I think Denis Villeneuve has one of the most impressive filmography in the last 10 years. Arrival tells a story about a professor, played by Amy Adams, who leads an elite team of investigators when one day alien spaceship emerges, literally from the mist, a 1,500 foot of what looks like a black rock floating weightlessly just above the ground in Montana, United States, and 12 other locations around the world. Science fiction lies between fantasy and reality. It's a playground for speculation, examining our humanity, observing what we might become or magnifying what we are made of. Early on, it becomes pretty clear that for an alien invasion movie, this film actually not all that interested in aliens. Humanity's reaction is what's important. It sets the tone for what's to come, a mature, thoughtful piece of science fiction that uses a first contact premise not just as a setup for a doomsday scenario, but as a platform for an incredibly powerful, nuanced look at love, relationship, and the human condition itself.
Ian,
Yeah.
if you could see your whole life from start to finish, would you change things?
The best science fiction movies are the ones that succeed in stimulating our minds, not to confuse us with convoluted stories, but to open us to new and less traveled horizons. The film, as an effective sci-fi movie, was able to force us to see beyond the scientific aspects and leads into philosophical territory. Happiness and freedom begins with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are in your control, and some things are not. Which one of these two sounds more terrifying? Hearing the news of a deadly virus that is spreading rapidly throughout the world? Or hearing the news that your mother has just been diagnosed with cancer? You see, the most effective horror movies are the ones that manage to make horror into a personal experience. It's the thing that we love the most that hurts us. It's what we hold dear. It's able to scrape our heart, even our soul, more than we can admit it to ourselves. Hereditary tells a story about a grieving family who is haunted by tragic and disturbing occurrences after the death of their grandmother. No one will call this movie a simple haunted house story. Most viewers, even the most devoted horror fans, don't really know what to make of Ari Aster's chilling first feature film. What happens in this house unsettles us deeply, even before some traditional genre tropes appear. There's nothing predictable about Hereditary. This is a film that largely deals in atmosphere and emotional horror, which functions on multiple levels. What we see is undoubtedly terrifying, but it's how we see it that truly distinguishes this film. It's both hard to watch and impossible to look away. To say Hereditary has several visually shocking scenes is an understatement, but the real red meat Aster serves up in this movie is existential dread, the pain of betrayal, and the cold reminder that you never really know a person, no matter how much you love them.
Tu sais, ta mère, elle m'a fait ramper au début. Elle arrêtait pas de me dire que j'étais son meilleur ami à l'école. Ça me rendait dingue. Puis en plus, je comprenais rien, parce que c'est pas comme si elle avait quelqu'un d'autre, même pas. Et puis un jour, on a eu notre premier baiser. Et puis là, j'ai compris.
Raw made me remember why I love movies. It's the cannibal movie that caused people to faint at film festival. This is what people talk about when they talk about Raw, the extraordinary body horror parable from French director Julia Ducournau, where it was reported that an ambulance had to be called after 2 audience members passed out during the screening at TIFF. It's going to be easy to label this film as a cannibal horror movie. However, director Julie Ducournau's future debut is about so much more than the consumption of human flesh. It's a coming-of-age drama that truly understands the loneliness of being away from home for the first time. Ducournau uses eating of human flesh as a metaphor for sexual awakening and experimentation. The way it pictures horror will make you flinch more times in this film than others that are far more violent. The quality of scares and violence in this movie goes to show all the horror filmmakers out there that you don't need a bucket of blood or numerous loud noises to be effective. With the help of the beautifully nightmarish use of color and light from the cinematography and the chilling score, Ducournau creates a lingering sense of mystery throughout. I love my mom more than life itself. If someone took her or harmed her, there is nothing I wouldn't do to find her. Nothing I wouldn't do to anyone I thought responsible. Nothing I wouldn't do to save her and protect her. We all think those things, and we all say them about the people we love. Some say it without really feeling it except as a concept. Others of us feel it to our bones.
And every day, she's wondering why I'm not there to fucking rescue her. Do you understand that? Me, not you, but me!
Prisoners chooses to take these themes and wrap them up for us in a story that hits closer to home. It pictures the worst nightmare for a loving father, the disappearing of his own daughter. It simply raises the question, when your kid's life is at stake, how far are you willing to do to protect your family? It explores the likelihood of human behavior when such crime is happening to us, blurring the lines between good and bad people. On its face, Prisoners is an intense graphic thriller with an elaborate and important commentary on society's failure to address one of the most fundamental moral quandaries of our time. It's hard to stop watching despite how dark, relentless, and raw the story gets. Despite being 2.5 hours, nothing feels unnecessary. Prisoners is in the best thriller traditions, but goes deeper into a reflection of one of the greatest moral dilemmas in modern society. In attempting to confront that dilemma in a more direct and personal way, the film is several steps above most other crime thrillers or revenge tales, choosing to not only be memorable, but also to matter. One of the best movie scripts ever written, combined with a precise and meticulous direction to its every detail. David Fincher's The Social Network shows the critical role that collaboration played in the creation of a masterpiece.
I was your only friend. Yet one friend.
The film that combines perfectly both cinematic storytelling and social critique. The movie centers around Mark Zuckerberg, played by Jesse Eisenberg, and the creation of Facebook. I would say that this movie will outlive Facebook, because it's not a movie about social media. It is not a movie about Facebook. It's about desire, friendship, betrayal, and love. It just uses the creation of Facebook as a backdrop to further explore these ideas. These themes that were tackled in perfect balance in a plot that focuses in the relationship that Mark has and also destroys during the creation of Facebook. Not a single scene is wasted, and the film is constantly propelled forward with unyielding momentum. From the very beginning of the movie, it's easily predicted that The Social Network is not going to be your average young struggling entrepreneur success story. This already becomes clear in the soundtrack during the opening credits. This score, created by Trent Reznor, already illustrates the major theme of the movie, a broken loneliness and a seething anger and thirst for power underneath it. As for the conclusion, I'd like to call this as a film that defines our generation. The film that talks about the theme that defined the decade of 2010s, Social Network. Truly a product of its time, the best film of the decade.